First of all, thank you so much to the panelists and, of course, for all of you attendees who are joining in. We are sure that the next hour or so is going to be packed with information and very useful and accurate information as well, which could, potentially kickstart your MBA journey or at least get you, thinking along the same lines. This session, of course, is, organized by Gradvine. For those of you who do not know what Gradvine is, we are today India's largest education consulting and career guidance platform. I can state with confidence that we are the largest because we are the only ones who don't sell you universities. We try and push you on the right path for your career and then maybe ensure the best possible programs and career outcomes for you. So right from evaluating your profile, helping you build it, to building a great application for some extremely selective schools, we do it. We do not have any tie-ups with universities, and we don't try and shove them down your throat. Pretty much it's all unbiased guidance here. Today we'll be talking about a lot of aspects about the MBA journey, right from some of the profiles that our panelists had, how they cracked their dream admits, their thought process during the entire thing, their application strategy. And of course, after that, I'm sure you'll have a lot of questions that we will be, taking towards the end. If for any reason we are not able to take your questions, because there might be a lot, you can always schedule a free consultation on www.gradvine.com and you can have all your questions answered one-on-one. It gives me great pleasure to organize, the session today, primarily because of the quality of the candidates we have here, right? We've been able to put in a very, very diverse sort of panel. So we have, MBA candidates who are pursuing their MBA at ISB right now, from the UK, from the finest, who are going to the finest schools in the US. So we bring in a lot of diverse perspectives. Second thing, we have a lot of options to choose from in terms of panelists from the top B schools. We've cherry picked this panel because I've had the pleasure to work with them at some level. Maybe I did a shortlist there or, had a couple of conversations here or something of that sort. And I know that these are some of the finest candidates who, more than deserve the kind of results they've gotten, right? So these panelists are cherry-picked to give you the best possible information because they did a lot of things right, in terms of, how they plan the entire process. The final thing before I, leave the floor to my panelists, that gives me, great pleasure is that all of them are Gradvine mentees and they've come back. They're spending their weekend, Sunday, an hour and a half, without anything to gain apart from just giving you some great information. We are able to put this session out to you for free because our panelists have agreed to spend their time without any other intention except to help, right? So I think kudos to them. It's really, really great that you're coming back to give to future MBA applicants. And with that, I will shut up. I promise not to talk much for the rest of the session. It's going to be completely left to the panel. I think we can, start with intros. Why don't we start off with, Revanth, a little bit about yourself and what you're doing right now.
I'm Revanth. I'm based out of Hyderabad itself. So I've done my engineering from CBIT Hyderabad in computer science. Coming to my work experience, I work with General Electric in the leadership program. So I was across multiple roles, including product management, project management, development, testing in 2.5 years that I've worked at GE. Post that, I've joined ISB again. That's it. That's briefly about me.
Indira, would you like to go next?
So I'm Indira, and over the last few years, I've had the pleasure of working in multiple sectors. I started off working in the social impact sector. Then I moved to financial services. In between, I was also for a bit working in the manufacturing sector. And for the last almost close to 1 year, I've been working with Gradvine full time. And I'll be heading to Cornell for my MBA this fall.
All right, that's fantastic. An interesting story about Indira, right? So yeah, we on the posters you would have seen that Indira is going to Cornell Johnson, but she had acceptances into I think UCLA, Anderson, Darden, ISB, and I don't know, a bunch of other places. And then Indira looks very kind, but she was gangster while negotiating scholarships. So if you want any tips on that, please make sure you post that question right at the end. Literally arm-twisted admissions committees, and we are proud of you for doing that. They take a lot of money. So thank you for that introduction. Sandhya, we'd love to hear from you next.
Yeah, thanks, Sreekar. And thank you so much for organizing this. Hi, everyone. I'm Sandhya. I have also worked for close to 7 years in Bangalore. Prior to that, I did my engineering in electronics and communication from SRM University. In the 7 years that I've worked with some of the financial institutions such as Citibank and HSBC, not into the core banking or finance, but in digital data analytics, trying to make digital banking better every single day for our customers. And then I chose to transition my career path and do an MBA. Currently, I'm pursuing my MBA from Said Business School, Oxford, and I'll be graduating in the next 3 months.
All right. So we'd love to take your inputs on the job scenario and how placements work at these universities. I think that's an interesting topic. So we have Monica as well. She's heading to Carnegie Mellon Tepper this fall. Monica, I leave the stage to you.
Hi everyone. My name is Monica, and I actually am from Hyderabad. Like, I am basically from Odisha, but I've stayed in Hyderabad for a couple of years. I am actually an architect who had started her career working as a designer and an architect, of course, headed and transitioned into an IPC, which is basically an international property consultant. So I work in a real estate sector as a design manager and also a business development. I have done my bachelor's from NIT Rourkela, that is National Institute of Technology, Rourkela. And yeah, and I would be heading to, like Sreekar said, Carnegie Mellon Tepper School of Business in the coming fall.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much for those intros, guys. Now, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, right, which are straight, single sentence answers, which I think a lot of our audience would be interested in. First of all, how many years of work ex did you have when you submitted your application? Monica, you're in the flow, so why don't you start?
All right. So I actually had like around 4.5, if I'm not wrong. I'll be completed like my 5 years while I actually like start off my program. But while I applied, it was almost 4.5 years.
4.5 years. Sandhya, how about you? I think you briefly touched on it, but if you could reiterate.
Yeah. When I was applying, it was around close to 6.5 years of experience.
6.5 years of experience. All right. Yep. Indira, why don't you go next?
I had about 4.5 years of work experience.
All right. Revanth, I think a lot younger. So
yeah, 2.5 years of work experience when I was applying to ISB.
All right. All right. And another question, which is very important so that our attendees get an idea. What were your GRE or GMAT scores, if we may know? Revanth, you can start. Yeah.
So I had a 335 in my GRE with 5 in AWA.
335 on the GRE. Thank you. Indira, how about you?
I had a 325, but it took me 3 attempts, so it was not easy. And I had a 4.5 on the AWA section.
All right. Humble as ever. That's fantastic. All right. Sandhya, what was your score?
Yeah, I think I started giving GMAT from 2018 when I realized I need an MBA. Did really bad in GMAT at that time. Took me another 2 years to buck up and prepare well. So in that, I think I didn't give another official attempt. I was just giving a lot of mocks. And then finally I scored a 700 in GMAT. And it was already too late. As you know, Sreekar, it was around the round 3 deadline. So I was like, okay, I can try to apply with the 700 and see what happens for that particular year.
All right, fantastic. 700 is a great score in itself. So, that's great. Monica, and what was yours?
Yeah, Sreekar, so I had a 334 on GRE.
All right, all right, fantastic. So the reason why I asked you guys these questions is for MBA admissions. I hope all of you, and if you want to apply for an MBA, you should be good at identifying patterns for all the attendees. So you see a pattern here. Good test scores, GRE or GMAT at this point, doesn't matter. Second, work experience. All the candidates who got in abroad had upwards of 4 years of experience. Now I've had a few people who got in with 3 years of experience at the time of application to good schools this year, but you're always swimming against the tide. A high test score is almost a non-negotiable at this point in time. So apart from your application essays, these are 2 things. And this is not me saying it. It's, open-ended question that I posted to everybody here and you heard their answers, right? Is it fair? I don't know. Is it how the world is? Yes. So, this is how you need to plan, in terms of profile building. So the next question I'm going to ask you guys, right? Because I know that there are quite a few freshers here, people with a few years of work experience. When did you start thinking, about an MBA? very seriously, like, no, I'm going to apply now, not like, yeah, MBA exists, maybe I'll apply for it in the future, but when you took a decision that you're going to apply. Monica, can you start off by telling me when you were seriously thinking about it?
Okay, so this is a very funny story. So I ended up giving a GATE while I was in college out of peer pressure, because everybody, like when they complete their bachelor's, right, they start off giving GATE because they have to head out to a master's degree. Now, you wouldn't believe, like, so I am a dancer. So I had a program or a competition just before the day. So I did not even know that my center is at a certain place. So it is just the day that I gave the exam, apparently out of nowhere. You could say is it like a fluke or by experience, whatever it is that I've learned through my 4 years of studies. It happened to be like, okay, I got a decent score. Now that's the problem, because once you got a decent score, everybody would put in and barge into your head saying, okay, now you've got a decent score, you have to apply to certain schools. Now, all my peers or all my batchmates had started doing masters like MTech or Embark, M-Design, some or the other categories, right? And I was clueless because I was not sure, but do I really want to do masters? Because I did not know if that is going to give me any kind of an edge, right? So it was just out of gut that I thought, okay, I would rather choose to do certain work so that I could understand and I could see myself where I actually stand and what is that I really want to pursue. Because for a longer term, I always had this idea that I want to like have something of my own. That entrepreneurship, it was always inside me. So I was not sure if just doing a master's in a certain field would really give me that kind of lineage to do it, right? So while I started working also as an architect, I was very fortunate that my CEO had given me this direction to pitch for certain clients myself. There is when I gained a certain kind of confidence, and I could actually execute a project by myself in the first year of my work. So that's very new, because for in our field, for you to really like head a project takes you like 5 years and all of that. So it was that kind of an exposure that I got that sort of gave me a confidence. And yes, I could actually lead a larger team and actually deliver a project. So we had done a couple of projects for multi clients like Google, Facebook, and all of that. And that's when I realized that, okay, this is something that I like. Now, how do you actually do that? While I transition into that entire process of executing a project, it comes with a lot of back-end work that you have to do. You have to really understand what is the capex value. Now, capex is all commercials. Commercials comes from business for your own company that you're actually working in and for the client as well. So these are the kind of things that really intrigue me. And that is when I actually thought I should transition into business development. And when I joined an MNC, of course, I assist or work in a core management team where I basically report to the directors and the entire management team, and the entire strategy that goes behind the operation and running the business is something that really intrigues me. And that gaining that experience, I thought, okay, this is the right time that I've gained so and so experience and I can actually pursue an MBA, because that gives you a lot more refinement in terms of understanding how a business runs, not only a bookish or a theoretical knowledge, but of course, like you would actually gain network, you would gain that particular real-time experience. And that is when you would understand what exactly is happening in the current market scenario, right? So that is how it is. So it's just been the thing that I want to have something of my own. I really want to like be a leader at some point of a time, not now or tomorrow. So that is how it has been in my head, and I wanted to pursue that. So while working, I thought, okay, after gaining 4.5 years of experience, I thought, okay, this is the right time to pursue an MBA.
All right. Thank you so much for that. I think moral of that story is going with the flow can be hazardous. So, always keep thinking. Thank you so much for that. Revanth, how about you? I know you had a slightly different, thought process. You were looking at masters as well abroad, and then you decided to jump in here. So what went in your mind at that point?
Right, Sreekar. So in my case, so an MBA, definitely I had a thought of an MBA, but I didn't know when I was going to do it. So I started this thought in my second year. So entrepreneurship was something that was always in my mind. So, what you asked me, what do you want to become? I'm like a CEO or a CTO in the future. So then I used to go and browse profiles, what every CTO has done. Have they done the masters, or have they done the MBA? then I realized that again, I had a very ambiguous answer from there as well, because few CEOs were good tech candidates and few CEOs had good management profiles. And that came into me as well, because I come from a very strong technical background. So in college or post-college, I was very, closely involved with tech. And I also wanted to do an MBA at some point or the other. So during third year was when I got to know about ISB. And their YLP, the Young Leaders Program, actually intrigued me. It's like you get to work for a while, then you can choose if you want to join ISB or not. So I thought, maybe why not apply through ILP? Unfortunately, I couldn't make it through ILP. However, that kind of gave me an idea, to think, let's work first, understand where you're good at, and then do your MBA. So once I started working, fortunately, I was across different roles as I was a part of the leadership program. I explored development, I explored project management, I explored product management. And that is when I realized that, for instance, product management was something which I was really liking. Development was always there with me, but product management really had my heart. So I'm like, I realized that at this point in time, MBA would be the right option for me. And again, I applied for ISB and, made it to ISB. So that was how my journey went.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much. Sandhya, I know that you had a hyper-focused, sort of career trajectory in terms of, the kind of roles you were doing. So what made you decide that, I'm ready to take the leap?
Yeah, so mine is also a funny story. I always knew I wanted to do an MBA right from the college, but just like Revanth, didn't know when and where. So I started off from my second year of college giving CAT exams. And I was hell-bent on, if I do an MBA in India, I will do it from one of the IIMs or not. So, but CAT, as all of us here know, it was quite competitive, didn't clear the mark and was not able to make it to the IIMs. Then I slowly started progressing much more in my career in the organizations. And that's when I realized the moment you cross around 3 or 4 years of experience, clearing a CAT exam and doing an MBA from IIM India, although it's one of the best business schools, but the more and more work X that you gain, the kind of return on investment you get from an IIM would be quite less. And that's when I started looking into and exploring more about the GMAT and international MBA kind of focus. So starting 2018, I started exploring more, researching more, gave my GMAT. Then I knew that I had to perfect my GMAT game, get that magic number in the GMAT, 700 plus, so that I can get into a good school. So I think 2018 was the initial year where I thought about it. And post-pandemic, I had all the time to prepare during the pandemic, post-pandemic, and I knew for sure, as in how I was crossing like 5-year, 6-year line in my career, that I want to do an MBA now, because after a point I was starting to feel stuck in the functional growth, in a very linear growth in the company. And I was coming from a technical background. I was doing like in analytics. I knew I had to be in the digital space, but I was stuck in like a technical role. So I wanted to move to the forefront of business decision making. And that's when I realized the importance and need to do an MBA. So post like 2021 onwards is when I started preparing with a much more laser focus.
All right, fantastic. And Indira, will conclude this question with you. I know you took a very brave decision at one point. Went for a master's, got into a great school, decided to come back and apply for an MBA instead. So why don't you shed some light on that?
Sure. So, the one thing that I want to say is that I come from a family of female entrepreneurs. My grandmom started her own company when she was 40. So the bug of, kind of doing something in business was always there. But in the initial stages of my career, right after graduating, I made a very conscious choice to explore different sectors. And I was in and out 1 year in each sector. And what I realized is that I really like learning. The learning aspect is something that's really important to me. And over the years, I think one career that I felt like is the right fit for me is consulting, because you work on a new project every 6 months. You're working on a different function, different sector. So I knew that I wanted to do something in management, and I wanted to do it early at a point. So going back to what Sreekar just said, I went to Duke to pursue my MEM, a Master's in Engineering Management, but for whatever personal reasons and otherwise, I felt like the curriculum was basic because I had already done the master's, which was a basic introductory course to management and liberal arts. So I wanted something that was more in depth. And I wanted to do a concentration, especially in strategy. So so I took a decision to come back, and then I applied to B school. So yeah, I mean, the bug was always there, but I think I've explored a lot, and now I know like this is the right choice.
All right, thank you so much for that. So you can see that very different times and different thought processes, right? Indira decided to apply for an MBA, clearly a couple of months or 3 months before she wanted to apply. The others started very early. Revanth, of course, because it's ISB, you don't need to wait 4 years. You can apply, with lesser work experience. So when you start thinking about it, almost matters less than doing the process correctly and having the right profile for the right place. And that brings me to the process aspects of it, right? So what is the first avenue for research when you were exploring, B schools? Was it, some website, or did you talk to your seniors, or, how did it go? Sandhya, would you like to start off with that?
Yeah, I think what helped me in my case was talking to all the people through LinkedIn who are currently pursuing MBA in the different universities that I was trying to apply to. I applied to some of the US universities and UK universities because I was myself very torn between choosing which geography to go to, which university should I choose, and I just had like a month after giving my GMAT and TOEFL for all the deadlines. So what helped me is, of course, the ranking websites that we have, the top universities, QS and all that, but also to talk about the experiences alumni or the current students in that year had. I think that was my first avenue of research rather than just going through the internet articles and blogs, just talking and hearing about the experiences from the person themselves.
All right. And Monica, was it similar for you?
Yeah, it was very similar because I did not have a lot of people who have pursued their MBA from abroad, of course. You would see a lot of people have done their MS or MEM, but for an MBA, there weren't a lot of people I could reach out to. So, of course, the ranking, listing, websites, GMAT Club, of course, in that matter, all of that really helped to do my initial research. But then, of course, it came down to reaching out to people or alumni on LinkedIn, and then gaining certain perspectives. And of course, once you start off your application process, you would see certain other people who are actually applying, and then the entire conversation and brainstorming around what are the certain opportunities that could come through while you're opting for a certain school is how I sort of categorize it. So that is how it started initially.
All right. And how about the countries? Were you fixed on the US, or were you exploring different options?
No, I was very fixed or very determined of getting into the US because I like that would be my own personal choice. But I certainly felt that Europe has a lot of language barrier, and the kind of opportunities that I'm looking at, a network of opportunities that I wouldn't be very certain if I get into a college in Europe. UK, of course, were there, but then I certainly thought the opportunities that I would get into in US and the global network that I'm looking at would certainly fall into the kind of schools that was which I was looking at in the US. So yeah, majorly it was because of that.
All right. Fantastic. Thank you. And how about rankings? Did you guys obsess over the ranking of your university? I know Revanth ISB themselves market themselves on world ranking. We are number so and so above everybody else. But how much of a difference is that ranking making to your life at this point?
Honestly, Sreekar, ranking, yeah, although ISB gives importance to rankings, once you enter college, we seldom discuss about them. But again, what, at least from my perspective, what I felt was it's good to have a brand on your name. And to have that brand, you need not be the first in the industry. I was like assuming maybe top 50, top 100 would always do good for me. And again, yeah, as I said, right, ISB is working on its rankings, but again, once you enter college, rankings don't matter as much.
All right. Thank you so much for that. And Indra, how about you? Because I think you did consider India, and the US. But what were your priorities for that you were looking at into schools? Was it the visa norms? Was it the placements? How were you researching it?
I think for me, the exposure part was something that I really wanted. And from what I know, most of the IIMs have a lot of freshers as compared to people with significant work experience. And therefore, in India, ISB was the only choice I had, to be very honest. Apart from that, in the West, I spoke to a lot of people this time around. I spoke to seniors who'd gone to B schools, and something that they said was that you needn't go to like the #1 school on FT rankings of Forbes. The schools that are ranked 1 to 50 more or less or provide similar opportunities. So it's not like you're missing out on a lot. And but having said that, I did go through the stats for different schools, saw what schools would be more likely to accept a profile like mine, because at the end of the day, I wanted it to be realistic too. And that's why I decided to apply to the schools that I did, and it turned out well.
All right, great. And I think, one aspect is definitely when you're applying to countries, guys, for an MBA, rankings are a decent place to start. It gives you a fairly good idea. But always critically analyze the stay back period and visa norms in the country that you're going to. The country should let you stay back and look for a job. No point going to a university that's ranked number 5, on some list, if the country that it exists in doesn't let you stay and look for a job. It's going to be an expensive mistake. And secondarily, also, you have to look through the university website. Any university worth its salt will put out placement statistics on its website in terms of foreign students, and you have to do the hard work and critically evaluate that, right? Even if you hire a consultant like us and we suggest universities, you should still go and read up about them and don't go blindly, buy it, right? That research, certainly helps. And also certain universities offer more scholarships than others, right? And I think 3 of our panelists got significant scholarships, from the universities that, they attended, which is, fantastic. So this takes me to the next point, right? And I think which a lot of our attendees today will be interested in terms of the application strategy. So I want you guys, to think about maybe a few things that you did right, 1 or 2 things that you did right, and a couple of things you wish you did differently. I wouldn't say wrong, because at the end of the day, the results have been good for you, but maybe you wish you did differently, right? Let's phrase it, in that manner. So, Monica, can you start us off? What worked for you in the application? Any tips you have for, our listeners?
Yeah, so I started off very late, to be very honest, because I was actually preparing for GMAT. And then I pivoted into GR at a very stage because I thought it was getting very aggressive for me. Initially, I was preparing for I was always doing Mongosh and all of that. That really kept me an edge. So I thought, why not transition and try this over? Because I had a very hectic work schedule, and it sort of didn't allow me a lot of time to prepare. So the first thing I would say is prepare ASAP. Like while you set your vision of applying into a B school, you should have that kind of a duration to timeline, basically to set milestones, or when you want to do what. So at least by what time you want to give your exams, or if it works for you, this course, or if it doesn't work for you, where is the other? You should have a buffer space in there. So that is one thing that we should actually do. And of course, research is something that is really important. So that is there. Now, what worked in my favor is, of course, my score came out decent. And then while applying, I sort of thought of leveraging my non-conventional background. So it is something that you actually have to set apart from the rest, because you know that there would be a lot of people who would be applying, and I was applying round 2. What set me apart would be my key differentiators and my vision towards pursuing that particular degree, and what is that I would gain from that, and what not only gain, but what is that I'm going to give back to, right? If you are actually very focused or very like clear on these aspects, it gives you a right edge and to like sort of formulate or structure your application. And like I said, research and try to sort of sync what suits best for you. And at the same time, would you be suited best for them? And that is also a certain question, because while we, like Indira was saying, we saw a lot of listing and rankings. We do that. We do a lot. We all of us want to get into the best universities possible. But then again, basis your profile, what is the kind of school that you should be getting into, or you could actually add value is very important, because that is what keeps you apart from the rest of the people or rest of the mass. So I sort of focus on my key differentiators, and that is how I actually targeted and sort of went through my application process.
All right. Thank you so much for that. So I think you started a little late, but managed to navigate that otherwise. And I think this is going to be a recurring theme in terms of when you start, when you hear the rest of the panelists as well. Sandhya, how about you? What worked for you, what didn't in terms of the application process?
Yeah. So I think one key tip from my end would also be to start really early. So I also start really late because I kept giving mocks in the GMAT. I was not really happy with the scores. I had a perception in my mind to achieve a certain score, but then I just had to take that leap of faith and just go book the exam, give both GMAT and TOEFL, which was already in around late November. And then I literally just had 1 month to finish like applications of 7 universities. And that's where Sreekar came to the rescue. And I was still able to navigate it because I think one more important step that I already did before was I was very clear on the kind of universities that I'll be applying to. And when Sreekar also helped me shortlist that, it was like pretty clear to me. So that was a great point, Sreekar, that you mentioned before, like the visa rules and the other country restrictions that they might have post-MBA was so crucial to my application process as well. Because of the post-study work visa that UK comes up with, I was able to shortlist the UK universities. Prior to Brexit, if people just had 6 months of buffer, otherwise they had to return to India, which many of the people I spoke to also did, I would not even have considered UK. So because that entire dynamics changed, my focus on being in the UK was much more clear to me. So I think researching a lot about the universities prior to even applying or even giving a GMAT really helped in my favor. And then, I think the whole application process, also what I did slightly early was while I was giving the GMAT and the exams, I already started talking to my recommenders who were going to write a letter of recommendation, right? Because that can significantly delay your process. So I already gave them a heads up that I'm willing to pursue my MBA this year, would reach out to you at any point in time in the next 1 or 2 months, and would need a letter of recommendation, and helping them give a template also. It helped me in that 1 month timeline that I had. But my tip is to start really early, because I ended up applying in the round 3 deadline, and which is why the universities that I applied to, they were really short on scholarships. Had I applied in round 1 or round 2, would have definitely secured one, but because of round 3 application, round 3 and round 4 always like gets missed out in the terms of scholarship. So my key tip is to apply by round 1 or maximum by round 2.
All right, thank you. That is a very, very useful tip for sure. So if you guys are listening in, apart from the GRE GMAT, the next biggest advantage you can give yourself is by applying early, right? So people talk about profile building, important, sure, but this also elevates your profile in a way with very, very simple, sort of things by not delaying the process essentially. So thank you so much for doubling down on that, Sandhya. Revanth, I know you had a, very laser focused single application, but any, tips from you, because you were, I know, navigating MS applications too at the same time.
Yeah, Sreekar. So again, firstly, what I think you have to understand is what the college really wants from you. So for instance, ISB craves for diversity. Now I sit in a class where there's a person from the Merchant Navy, there's a dancer, there's a singer. So they crave for diversity. And when you come from an engineering background, it gets a little difficult to add that X factor to your application. And when there's no IIT, NIT tag on your application, it gets even more difficult. While it is said that, these B schools give equal importance to extracurriculars and ACADS, if you have really low ACADS, I mean, I had above average ACADS, I didn't have exceptional ACADS. I had a normal GRE score. So when I gave my GRE for the first time, I only had a 318. So I thought my extracurriculars are very good. I could tell that I, won a coding contest. I came first in the country. So I thought, okay, I have good extracurriculars. Maybe they'll balance out for the, lesser academic score. But that didn't work out. So as I said, I applied for the first time. I got a reject. Second, the only change that I made was a better GRE score. And I got an interview call and I could, grab an admission. So what I strongly think is don't completely ignore your ACADS. At the same time, maintain good extracurriculars and don't, take things for granted.
All right. Thank you so much. And Indira, how about you? A whole bunch of scholarships, offered from multiple schools. I'd love to hear from your tips, and also maybe if you could touch upon negotiating for scholarships, which, a lot of applicants are not aware of.
So, firstly, I got GRE out of the way 2 years before I even applied to a B school. So that was done and dusted. So I think that's very, very important. If at some point you want to do a master's or an MBA, get your standardized test done, because you really can finish it off while you're in college itself. So that's one of the main aspects, right? Secondly, I think I applied very early. I started working on my essays 2-3 months before the deadlines were on. And a lot of these essays require a lot of introspection on how you would add value to the cohort, how would your experiences, kind of translate in the classroom discussions. So these are very important things and they really take time. So that's why I feel like applying early, gets you that kind of advantage to really have the time to think. But having said that, I would do the research early. I would have, stuff that I want to put on my essay, but the final version would only be ready 2 hours before the deadline. I'm very grateful to Suraj for really going through it at the last minute. But don't do that. Don't overanalyze your essays. I see a lot of students in the quest of trying to be unique or different. They totally kind of, go away from the prompt. Don't do that. If if you know that the essay is decent, go for it. Don't make this mistake. Secondly, applying in the first round itself gives you this opportunity to actually get scholarships, because you're competing with a smaller pool of candidates, right? And secondly, when I was applying, a senior of mine had told me that don't put in that you want scholarships from the schools. This might actually elevate your chances of getting into that school, because they know you can afford it because you're saying you don't want. And later when you get an admission, try negotiating with them. And that's exactly what I did with Cornell, because I think I was misinformed at the time. And I really wanted to get into a decent B school. But I didn't do it for the subsequent applications. Cornell was the first one that I applied to. So don't do that. Even if somebody tells you something, you do your own research, talk to experts. I think I was even too embarrassed to ask anyone that, should I actually select that box or not? And second thing, even after you finish applying and you receive 2-3 admits with decent scholarships, you can take those, send it to the other schools, and request them to match that. But again, you really have to work on writing a very good email on trying to convey why you think you deserve the scholarship and how you can add value to the experience. So that's important. And I think this was only possible because I started early. So start early. That's the only advice.
All right, that's a great bottom line. I think that's one thing that all the panelists have doubled down on. And the other thing, very interesting point, Indira, you bring up is the essays, right? Everybody, I find most candidates who come to us trying to show off their creative writing skills with these essays, trying to wow the admissions committee. Admissions committees don't want to be blown away by your writing skills, right? They couldn't care less. They want a simply written document where you are conveying why you want to pursue this degree, where you see yourself years down the line, and it has to be put in the most simple manner possible. They read hundreds of applications. Please make it easy. Don't try and do some sort of a creative writing exercise with it, right? Be very clear with your long-term goals. There's no excuse for that. Be very clear about how you add value to the class. And of course, this is where, a lot of applicants, Indian applicants especially, struggle. Talk about diversity and inclusion, because every B school today, asks about that. I think there's one question, in the Q&A that we will address, and I'll be open to you guys, which talks about, experience in a rural setting, and whether, USB schools or UKB schools, even value it, and, they value it a lot, and, our panelists will tell you why. Pretty much, right? So don't try and be, Shakespearean with your essays. Keep it simple and apply early. Thank you so much for doubling down on that, guys. Fantastic advice, no doubt. I know that you guys come from different backgrounds. I think 3 of you are engineers. Monica, of course, is from an architecture background, but even, within engineering, slightly different outlooks. So could you talk about your, for the engineers, your undergraduate department, and where you see the MBA taking you to, as a career outcome? So Indira, since you're already, in the flow, why don't you begin?
Sure. So I graduated as a computer science engineer from SRM University. Just realized Sandhya also is from SRM, so we should probably chat sometime. But yeah, so one internship during my 4 years, and I realized I can't do the typical IT job. And yeah, I knew that right from the start. So that's why I decided to go and work in the social impact sector. But now I want to eventually transition to consulting, work for a few years in strategy, explore different functions, and learn a little more about different capabilities. But eventually I want to translate to social impact consulting.
Social impact consulting, they're interesting. And do you see avenues from the schools that you applied to where, your alums and seniors have done it?
Yes, in fact, a lot of the consulting firms that I've been researching, even as a fresher, right? 1 year down the line, you feel like you don't want to do a lot of corporate. You can take a break and work on creating some sort of a strategy to solve some problem for an NGO. Most consulting firms are doing that. But I think to actually, as an Indian, to translate to social impact, I think you need at least a few years of work experience as a generalist, and then you can probably pivot to that.
Okay, all right, thank you so much. And Monica, you a non-engineer, and I think you come from you're mentioning the slightly more artistic side. So can you shed some light on that?
So like I said, I had pursued my bachelor's in architecture. And after that, while I started off my career, it was like an architect, of course, because that's an immediate role that you would get after your graduation. But like while I had like sort of transition into execution, I got a certain perspectives of project management that was really important, and also business development. And because I was headed into those part and joined in IPC, where we were doing real estate consulting. So consulting was something that I thought I could actually pursue post my MBA, immediate short-term goal. And like I said, that I always wanted to like be an entrepreneur, have something of my own, and meanwhile create a social impact for a longer run. So how do I bind it together? Because you can't have two separate dreams going in different directions. It has to be like binded together. So that is when I thought that why don't I take the things that I've inculcated, the knowledge that I've inculcated with my experience, those, and then like take that to navigate to my clearer dreams that I'm having in the future. So I thought, why not do consulting, and in the meantime, understand the setup and how a multifunctional or a business unit runs at a leadership role post my MBA, understand the different nitty-gritties of a company. There is when you would gain that knowledge to actually build in your own firm or a company. So that has been one part of it. The other part of it, like I said, social impact. So I would highlight the part that I come from in India. So that has been very marginalized in certain ways. So I've always tried to put in a certain aspect of it. So like I said, I'm an architect. I have this really urge, or you could say knack for creativeness. So I certainly thought that my region is very, very profound in a certain art and folk, which has not been really prominent across India itself. So why not take this thing and bind it for my own company while I build it, right? So I can actually gain that network. There would be a lot of marginalized spaces around the world or communities per se, which would have these kind of art, or maybe it could be something else that is not known to the people. So build into that community, try and do a company that looks into a vision of global opportunities, not just for yourself, but also to these marginalized societies or kind of people. So, and then it is very like weird, but I want to like put in stations in these kind of places, build in my architectural knowledge into it. So I want to build out like there's something called nomadic work center. So they, those people who are very like pro for hikes, they are like navigators, they just want to like work on remote locations. These the other people who would actually access these areas. At the meantime, the people native out there could get those global opportunities to highlight their own rooted culture and art. So this had been kind of a thing that I've been working into. So that has been my long-term vision. So that is how I find all of that together.
That's incredibly interesting, and I like that because otherwise MBAs are a lot of them saying that I want to work for a big four. Now the big thing is I want to get into product management. But this is fantastic. MBAs open up so many avenues for you, unlike a lot of master's degrees. Master's degrees help you specialize. MBAs broaden your horizons, right? And that's so fantastic. Hearing that. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you.
Sandhya, I know that you are an engineer, but you, if I'm not wrong, went into, finance and, fintech a little bit. So, how did you, make that journey, and where are you going to now, since you're finishing your MBA soon?
Yep. So I did my engineering, but from the second year of engineering, I was really sure that I do not want to pursue any further than this, which is why I did not want to do any MS or did not want to stay in the technical side of things. And luckily enough, from my on-campus placement that happened, I think I was first, my first job was with Cognizant, but my client was US Bank. So again, financial services client, right? So that's why I was introduced to this nascent world of digital analytics, the very different side of technology experience that I had, but wanted to continue in that, remain for the entire close to 7 years of my career doing digital analytics. And coming to MBA, also like, I just want to take this response a bit more in a longer manner. I also feel that many people come to do their MBA to find their calling, right? So I, having worked in analytics, which is a pretty transferable skill across the industries, I just wanted to understand that what is the path for me, which industry or sector should I go into? Because I feel that there are no set paths for an MBA graduate. In the 1 year, this is the time you can take risks or do what you would really like to do, because no one is going to question you. Even if it goes south, you can say, hey, I was trying it from my MBA transition. It didn't work out, and I can go back to doing what I was doing. Even many people I know here, it's interesting and refreshing to see how people come here not to feel limited to a job title or position. People here, including me, love to find a role that suits us the best, a role where we can actually create impact. Even my batchmates here are more contrarians than conformers who are trying to break away from the conventional way of thinking. So even I'm looking into either going into consulting, because I've just learned and worked on financial services industry, want to experience every other industry or sector that's out there, which consulting would provide. But if that doesn't work out, as I've worked day in, day out with product management teams, with product teams, I think my eventual path, if the consulting doesn't work, can be to go back to being in the product space as a business leader. But yeah, I think MBA is not like a transaction. Expecting immediate returns right after you come out of an MBA is to believe that is inherently wrong. It's the entire journey is a very transformative experience, and if properly done, it will reward you in many ways and ways and forms throughout your lifetime.
Yeah. What a lovely conclusion, for that. And, a panelist who's coming to the end of our MBA program with a very, very profound and useful insight for sure. And it's almost like you read my mind, Sandhya, because my next question was going to be, right, the elephant in the room, which I'm sure some panelists are aware of. Some attendees may not be. MBAs abroad are expensive. MBA in India also, ISB is expensive, for an Indian school, very, very expensive, in fact. So how did you analyze the cost benefit ratio, like purely from a dollar to dollar return or a rupee to rupee return? Where did you do your research, and does it make sense spending so much, on an MBA? I think I'll start with Revanth, because, ISB, a lot of applicants spending a lot, perhaps earlier in their careers. How is the ROI looking like for your seniors or your, batchmates also?
So Sreekar, here, first when it comes to ISB, I feel the ROI is calculated wrong. ISB is a 1-year program. So that is one thing that we have to keep in mind. When you get into IIMs, they more or less cost you around 27, 28 lakhs. ISB costs you around 40 for 1 year. However, you have the next year where you can work, and assuming an average salary of around 30, 35 odd LPA. In fact, your ROI is much better from ISBs per se. And again, when I talk to my seniors on, is it worth spending 40 lakhs at this point in time? They say that, ISB's real value comes in, once you're, in the industry for a longer time. For instance, 4 years, 5 years down the lane, your network is much better, and your growth opportunities, your growth is much, much better. One might tell that, today a tech company like Amazon is offering you 28 LPA after your bachelor's itself. However, your growth prospects are very limited. But when you spend those 40 odd lakhs on your education, your network is much, much better, and your growth prospects are exponential. It's not linear. So that is one thing, and which I felt was true in most of the cases, or in most of the stories when I hear from seniors as well.
Okay, I think doubling down on Sandhya's point, right? It's not immediately after you graduate what you're going to be earning in the first year or two. It's a lifelong return, right? That's why even though the tuition fees seem like mad money in some cases, it actually makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much, Revanth. So let's, jump countries and, talk about the UK, right, Sandhya? So again, UK MBAs, not cheap, definitely more expensive than India. How does the ROI seem to work out for your peers or your seniors?
So one thing that helped me in my research as well, right, and I'll try to be as candid here as possible. So I try to look at, let's say the tuition fee was around 65,000 odd pounds for me. But the average salary as an MBA you would draw after coming out of an MBA would again be around 65 to 70,000, right? So if you think about being in India, let's say you spend around, 30 to 40 LPA in the tuition fee. And if your average salary coming out of MBA is also around the same amount, you would be fine. Like it people try to convert and check if it's 65,000, oh my God, you're spending 65 lakhs in an MBA, but you're again going to be working in a country in which the average annual salary is going to be 65,000 pounds at the very least. So I think for me, what helped is I knew for sure, at least I'm going to spend for the next 5 to 10 years of my life in UK or in abroad, and then maybe think about going back to India, and not immediately, which is why people who did their UK MBA, let's say before Brexit, could not find a job in the next 6 months, who had to go back. For them, the ROI was really bad and they were struggling or are struggling. But for me, the moment this post-Brexit, this opportunity opened up for me to be able to stay here for at least 2 years after MBA, then it's just a game of the numbers, right? 65,000 pounds I spent, but I'm going to, on a very average, even the market is really bad, would gain at least like 65,000 pounds of an annual salary. So that was a big relief for me. And I know the market is really tight right now, but eventually I've seen even with my batchmates and myself, things are working out eventually for people. Even I'm undergoing many interview currently for internships as well. I'm almost close to confirming an internship offer for the July and August, post which I can think about either converting that full-time or would also apply to full-time job offers. Some people secure jobs right after coming into the MBA itself in the October to December time period itself. That's when the pre-MBA programs like we were mentioning before, I think that helps. But I just feel it works out for everyone eventually in the end. There are jobs in the market, even though, let's say Google laid off so many people, but even if you go and check on LinkedIn today, there are open positions in Google. So jobs will keep coming. And I think every organization needs an MBA. You will eventually get hired. It's just the patience that works well in everyone's cases.
All right. Thank you so much for those words. And this is coming at not a very friendly time in the job market, right, guys? So again, understand that going to the right university matters a lot, right? We talk about Oxford, Cambridge, ISB, Carnegie Mellon, Cornell, all of these, places. They are big names for a reason because they've been delivering results for students from before we were born, essentially, right? They're legacy schools for a reason because they have systems in place, and even though they cost a lot of money, the value they add to your career is absolutely fantastic. The US is by far and away the most expensive destination for an MBA, for an MS, for anything. And yes, it is a hub for jobs, but the amount you have to put in is simply daunting for an MBA. So, Monica, I know that you got a scholarship, but could you give perspective on how much the tuition fee is going to be at, a school like Carnegie Mellon, Tepper?
So it's funny again. So when I researched, so in the website, it showed around $72,000 for a year. So that is around 142 odd for 2 years. And then while I applied for my I-20, the AdCom had reverted back saying that the amount that you're showing is $3,000 less. So I was confused. Apparently, that increased the tuition to another $3,000 while they were processing my I-20. So it was going that crazy. So I was like, okay, then I have to budget, is it? So you get panicked because you do not know that you really have to budget in dollars, right? So there is when the university shortlisting also comes down. Like while you assisted me with a lot of universities and while I get admits from them. So the thing that came down to me, of course, is the ROI factor. So if I would mention like USC, that matter. So that is in LA. It's in downtown LA, and the living expenses is quite high compared to Pittsburgh, where CMU is located, right? So those have been the kind of factors that I actually had to look into, that what would be my other expenses other than just the tuition. Because what they show you is not only an accurate expense other than what tuition would cost, and that's all like could be floating, right? So it is really important for us to at least budget that fact and then like look into the colleges once you get admits or even when you're applying. So that's A, of course. And while I was doing that, I had also checked on the career opportunities, right, post the program. So like you said, there had been, you get an employment data to actually skim through, or what are the career opportunities. While I said I want to transition to management consulting, for us as an international student, the window becomes a little lesser because a lot of companies wouldn't be funding your H1B. So there is when I would also want to highlight on the STEM MBA. That becomes really important for us as an international student because you get that extended 24 months window to pursue your job and all of that in the US. So that is there. But while I actually had spoken to the alums there, or even the students who are currently in their first year, moving to the second year, most of them have internships, and it becomes moreover on the career development center that the college has. How aggressive is that? And how would your entire cohort would help you to gain the kind of role that you're looking to gain your internships, or maybe for an immediate post-MBA role. So that becomes very important in both ends. So if you are through that, okay, your school is providing you with the right resources for you to actually finance or refine yourself into the role, I think that should not be a problem at the end of the day. And of course, this is the ROI consulting is one of the most highly paid job in the US. And it is not because of that I chose that line, but yeah, of course, it is paying one of the most in that way. So I think, yeah, if I'm able to get that role that I'm aspiring, so that is there. And of course, other than that, you should always have a plan B, that even though these schools ask you that what if you don't get into a certain role that you're desiring, what would be your plan B and how would you actually go about it? So you should always be mentally ready, or at least prepare, because you're investing a lot of money into your degree. So you should always have a plan B of what else can you do in case if the role that you're looking at you cannot get through. If you are sorted with these two things, you would do well at the end.
All right. So I think even though there are more questions left, I cannot, take more of your time. You spent, an hour and a half on, a Sunday evening for some of you guys, a Sunday afternoon for, Sandhya, and that is, very much appreciated. And I think I have to thank all of you guys for just doing this for the sake of spreading information. No other, gains for the panelists here. And we are able to disseminate this information only because of the willingness of these guys. And the 4 names that we have here are the first 4 people that we asked, right? There's nobody else that we approached, for this. And like I said, we cherry picked the people who were going to give you, bang on answers, and you got that. So thank you so much. For any of you who, missed certain parts of this entire recording is going to be edited nicely and put up on YouTube. So it is going to be there for the benefit of MBA applicants, in perpetuity, and certainly was a very, very powerful session. I can't thank you guys, enough. I'm so glad to see you all doing, so very well. And, all the information that we give candidates is based on what you reiterate after the journey, right? It's not stuff that, I've learned off the internet or through some, crystal ball. And I enjoyed learning from you guys, and Sandhya and Revanth, especially you, on campus. And this is information that I will, keep telling students who approach us as well. So thank you so much for that. It was a lovely session, an insightful session. Any closing remarks, guys, before we, end the call? Anybody wants to go?
Thank you, Sreekar, for all the help you gave. And it's really good to be on the other side of the end now. Like, I have watched many such videos, YouTube videos, such edited videos to help me with my process. Now it feels really good to give it back. So really, really happy that I got an opportunity to do this. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. It was an absolute pleasure having you.
Thank you. I owe a lot of, a lot of the credit for all these admits goes to Gradvine. So thank you for this. And over the last year, I learned so much mentoring students and everything. So I'm really grateful for all that, you guys have given me.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Indira, and I think 2 application cycles with you. Not because of a lack of success, but because, success was found elsewhere in a different calling. So, always, wonderful dealing with that. So thank you so much, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we'll stay in touch. We'll try and organize one more sometime in the year if you guys are willing again. We'd, love nothing more than to have you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody. And of course, I would really want to thank Gradvine, because my entire journey have been like out of nowhere it came in, and I just told them I have 1 year, like 1 month to like prepare, and I want to like target the best schools. And I also I think I just like interacted with Sreekar there to like get that university's shortlisting. I'm like, okay, can we not aim for better ranking schools? And I remember you gave me a safe option. Then I was like, is it wise to give apply to that safe option at all? Because if I get it, I don't know if I'll go there, right, and all of that. So all of that journey has been really amazing. They have been always been available for my chaotic doubts, even if I wanted to reach out to them. So this entire journey has been really great. Now that I'm in it, it's really nice to also, like Sandhya said, be on the other side and help guide the students, of course. So yeah, thank you for giving us this opportunity.
No problem. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we will stay in touch.
Sure.
Before that, I just tell one thing about Gradvine at least. See, they might, whatever they might tell you might be a little harsh, but that's the truth. And that I've realized. And yeah, see, it's better to accept the truth and, improve your application rather than, beat around the bush in a false lie. So I feel, that is what I've loved about Gradvine, and, I've loved about Sreekar and Suraj. So yeah, that's one thing, why I even, tell when my junior asks, where do I go? I'd be like Gradvine. that is one reason. It's not because I have something personal from them. It's because I like the way you guys, work in the current consulting space, at least.
Thank you so much. Really heartwarming, hearing all that from our successful candidates, and may you guys go on mentoring so many candidates and dispelling misconceptions, because there's a lot of that in the market, and it's unfortunate. Huge funded companies now in this space simply selling universities, shoving them down people's throats, and these kids are sold, right? They prey on their fears, and there is nothing unbiased about the counseling that is being meted out at this point in time, and it's only through mentors like you that we can dispel these rumors. Again, much appreciated, really heartwarming, and we'll absolutely stay in touch with you guys. Thank you so much.